Hey, what's going on? I'm Daniel and I want you to win with money. We have a problem with savings. According to recent surveys from Bankrate, nearly 60% of Americans cannot come up with $1,000 for an emergency. To cover an unexpected expense, many would have to go into debt by asking family or friends for a loan or by borrowing from a bank. CNBC discusses this further by saying that nearly 1 in 3 have a New Year's resolution to build an emergency fund. This tops out goals such as buying a car, saving for a home, or hosting a wedding. You might say that's just normal, so let's look at a couple of other developing countries to get a baseline. It is normal for America, but as you'll see with some of these other countries, it's not necessarily normal around the world. Recent data has Japan at nearly 29% of a savings rate. If we look at Switzerland, they have a whopping 34%. If we want to get closer to home, Canada sits at around 28%. According to this data, where's the US? We're not even at 18%. I think most people know how important it is, but maybe they don't know where to start. But before we get into the solution, let's figure out why the majority are not where they want or need to be. It's my experience that $1,000 would be the absolute minimum. Ideally, we would have a healthy range of 3 to 6 months of expenses. As we get closer to retirement, we would want that number to stretch out to maybe between 18 and 36 months. That allows us to deal with the ebbs and flows of the market. Here are what I believe are the top 4 arguments for why people don't save enough, and another 4 ways to get ahead. They're all linked and may affect you differently based on your current situation, but I found the 4th solution was the most powerful for me. Number 1, we have the ability to borrow. As a result, we don't worry about an emergency because we have a credit card or a home equity line of credit. I just want to caution you that before you rely on a credit card, bad things rarely happen in isolation. In 2008, job losses occurred on a massive scale in response to the housing crash. Real estate values absolutely plunged and the stock market took a nosedive. It could also be something less dramatic like car trouble or the water heater or HVAC going out. Whatever it is, do you really want to risk taking on new credit card debt after a job loss? How about after your home values drop or maybe a sudden health emergency? After those events, I know the last thing I would want to worry about is paying 20% interest to a bank. There's a reason the banks occupy the upscale buildings that fill the skylines of every major city. They are not your friend. Also, to be able to pull from your home equity, the real estate market needs to be in good health. If the market draws back and you've just purchased your home, you could be underwater. Some banks have also been known to withdraw a line of credit if they suspect there's a credit risk or maybe that the home equity isn't there. Number 2, we are running a budget deficit every month. There can be numerous reasons for this. Many Americans are loaded up with debt payments. This often includes student loans or car payments, healthcare bills, and credit card payments. This is often combined with an income problem. Maybe we just need a bigger shovel to get out of the hole we're in. An income increase would make that easier. Number 3, we have money in the market. If you have stocks in an after-tax brokerage account, you may not want to liquidate them, especially if the market is down. All of 2022 would have been a terrible time to try to get out of the market. You would be selling at a loss, losing any chance of your values to recover. Many of us have retirement accounts, such as a Roth IRA or a 401k, but you would be robbing your future self of compound interest to do so. In some instances, you can pull from your Roth IRA what you've contributed, but none of the gains. For a 401k, you'll have to pay an early withdrawal penalty and taxes on it. Your future self will not be a fan of your current self if you do this, I guarantee it. Number 4, I call this the head in the sand or the ignorance is bliss mentality. Let's just be honest, some of us would rather not think about it. You know who you are. This is self-explanatory. I won't try to convince you to change your mind. You're an adult, do whatever you want. The good news is that there are a few solutions that have worked for me. But first, if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I want to help as many people as possible with their finances. Liking and subscribing is a great way to elevate this content to as many people as possible. I spent the last few years volunteering my time and energy to coach and mentor people with their finances. I love doing it, and so this channel is an outlet for me to help more people. Now back to the content. Okay, now here are the 4 things we can do to turbocharge our savings. Number 1, we manage our discretionary spending. This is often the culprit, where the income is there, but the spending is not. This is the easiest one to correct and doesn't require massive change. Instead, watch 100 small decisions that add up over time. I know that once I started managing my cash flow very aggressively, I felt like I got a raise. I personally use every dollar. I'm not sponsored by them, but I can tell you I use them monthly and I strongly recommend them. I'll talk more about managing your cash flow in another video, but the bottom line is that only a small percentage of Americans are working off of a written budget. Most of us are not maximizing our cash flow. Number 2, we can increase our income by scaling up our career or taking on additional work. Ask your employer for a raise or perhaps consider a job change. Do you have skills that could earn you more with a different employer? How about doing side work on nights and weekends? Every situation is different, but I've always been a big believer in trying to keep every option on the table. I've worked multiple jobs before or worked overtime at the same job, and I've aggressively pursued promotions as a result. Number 3, paying off our car. LendingTree says the average monthly payment for a new car is $700. It's mind-blowing to me. And a used car payment isn't far behind at $525. I've always tried to pay cash for cars, but even in times when I didn't have the cash and I had to borrow, I tried to keep my payments between $200 and $300. That allowed me to aggressively pay them off within the first 2 or 3 years. A car is a depreciating asset. COVID and the shutdowns were an anomaly, and we've already seen car values drop as a result. As a vehicle accumulates more and more mileage, more wear and tear, it's going to be worth less. A decent vehicle is an absolute necessity to get work done in most parts of the country, but something in the $10,000 to $20,000 range should strike that balance between reliability, safety, and affordability. This leaves wiggle room in your budget for proper maintenance of the vehicle and margin for your savings goals. Cars have become a bit of a status symbol, but they're not necessarily what the wealthy drive. In the book, The Next Millionaire Next Door, the author talks about how a typical millionaire will drive a Toyota or a Honda. Number 4, we automate our savings. When it comes to savings, I've always tried to take the path of least resistance. I'm lazy like that. I'm aware of that, I acknowledge it, and don't judge me. You're probably the same way. It takes a lot of work to save, and you have to be intentional about it. I know I'm probably not going to do it. I've had the greatest success when I automate things. All I do is have automatic transfers set up to my checking account to transfer them to a high yield savings account. Some of the more popular banks that I've seen used are Capital One and Ally. I'm not sponsored by either of them, but they seem to be intentional about creating a product for savers. At the time of this recording, they're both offering 3.3% interest. So it might be worth investigating if you're not satisfied with your current bank. Most of the mega banks like Bank of America and Wells Fargo tend to have terrible interest rates and really high fees. The bottom line is you want cash set aside so you can access it quickly. All right, folks, before you go, my goal with this channel is to build a community of support. If you have any questions for me or need help with your finances, my email is in the description below. If you have a success story you'd like to share as it relates to this video, please share it in the comments below. Who knows, you might give hope or encouragement to someone who's really struggling. Until next time.